Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bye Podcast of the Raven and Ree.
My name is Raven.
And my name is Ree, and this is our second installment of our read along of the short second life of Bree Tanner. We stopped at page 50 last time, so we're going to do another 50.
Yeah, make sure you guys get your books to follow along. We'll be reading it and pausing to have
Dissect.
conversation. But before we get into it, I mean, is there anything that's happened? I think we were supposed to post last week or something crazy or something like that. So we're only like a week behind, but
Yeah, what was it? Yeah, I had gotten home late, and then this past weekend I went to go see my friend from college. So that was fun. I had a good weekend. Nothing new that I know. I haven't kept up to date with Twilight news, but I got accepted to my top pick for graduate school. So that's new.
yay.
So
When do
be
you
back in.
start?
Oh well, I gotta get through. I gotta like go through the commitment and registering for classes, but I will be back in school probably around August, September.
Yeah, that's good. I in Twilight news, the Instagram fandom, Twilight fandom blew up over the last week or so. People were called out, people were doxxed. Just
Accounts are
craziness.
deleted from what I've heard.
Yeah. Um, but that's like a whole nother story for a whole nother day that I don't even, oh my goodness, great. That would be a whole episode if we talked about that
Yeah.
craziness. Because if we went anything into that, that'd be like hours long.
Yeah. It's
And
insane.
maybe I will do a tell all one. Possibly.
The Bite podcast, they tell
Tell
all.
all.
I was
Yeah,
just watching
so
Bachelor.
I would just like to say if you are coming or you are coming from that drama or are a fan and heard about the drama, there is a person going around saying that Ree and I are bullying people.
Which I
Which
just want to tell you guys, I have not been on social media in like 2 months. And if I have, it has not been to get into drama. It's been to look at Spider-Man edits.
yeah,
So
I think Ree's just guilty by association, probably.
it's like you
Uh
haven't even done anything. That's the thing. Raven
yeah,
haven't done anything. Raven is just standing up for herself and for her friends and saying the truth. So Raven's not bullying. And if you guys are gonna come at us or dox us or leave nasty comments, then that's on you.
yeah. I'm
We're
like,
just trying to vibe.
if you want to know the whole story of what's going on, go to Marin Forks on Instagram or TikTok and see what's going on because there's just a lot more and there's a lot of like ins and outs of the whole situation. But I do know that like I've gotten some DMs personally, um, asking if they were like, oh, I heard that you and like your podcast and another podcast were bullying someone, and I linked them to Mare's video just to so she can kind of explain, but there's no bullying going on, guys. I am not a bully. Ree is not a bully. I think our biggest fault is that in the past we've stuck up for our friends, and maybe sometimes we go a little too hard sticking up for our friends, but that's just like in our
That's not,
nature.
yeah, it's like if you're not sticking up for your friends when you see that they're being wronged, it's like, are you really their friend?
Yeah, exactly. So
So
if you're here from that, sorry, maybe I don't know.
sorry, I guess. Um, didn't do anything. We're just trying to read Bree Tanner. Like,
Yeah, we're just trying to be unproblematic and read Brie Tanner and write a book for gosh dang it.
yeah,
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 speaking of
write a
that,
series.
a series. Oh my gosh, I have no clue what was going on with me this past weekend. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know
creative inspo.
but the thing is my brain was been in a fog. Like my brain was in a fog, and all I could think about, like to be sane and like in the world, like it, like a person, was to think about the book. It was so weird.
Yeah,
So it was just like the weirdest thing ever. And then like I heard a song, and then I made a whole playlist, and then I started
that's
writing the
that's what gets me. It's the music.
yeah, and then it was just like from there I started writing a prologue. It was just like crazy. I think I have like eight pages total
That's great.
written, but three and a half of those are prologue, which equates to like almost like 6 or 7 like actual book pages. So I don't know. I was just going crazy this weekend. I don't know what's going on with me.
Just have creative inspo.
So if this pace keeps up, we'll hopefully have a book by the end of summer. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Heck yeah.
Okay, guys, we are
Grab your
starting.
book.
Yes, I guess I'll read the first 25, and then you'll
Yeah.
read the next.
If you
So
have if you haven't been following along on your own book and just have been listening to us, basically we are at the part where they just found out about the myths being, a lie, and now we're gonna see what goes from there.
yeah, and they're so cute. We love Bree and
Diego.
Diego. They're kind of I have a feeling that they like each other. Ree said for me to bear myself, so I am bearing myself, but I think they like each other, and I am nervous for I mean, like, I know the outcome, but
A
it
Brie.
yeah, so
You know the outcome of Brie at least.
yeah. Okay,
But
really quickly,
everybody
can
else.
you can still hear me, right? From
Yeah, I
this.
can hear you.
Okay, I put my mic down. All right, so we start. Do we tell Riley? Do we think he doesn't know? I asked. Diego sighed and dropped his hand. I don't know. Let's think about this while we track them. We're going to have to be careful tracking them in the day. We're kind of noticeable in the sunlight. He grinned. Let's be ninjas. I nodded. Super secret ninja club sounds way cooler than the whole BFF thing. Definitely better. It didn't take us more than a few seconds to find the point from which the whole gang had left the island. That was the easy part. Finding where they touched the ground on mainland was a whole other problem. We briefly discussed splitting up, then vetoed that idea unanimously. Our logic was really sound. After all, if one of us found something, how would we tell the other? But mostly, I didn't want to leave him, and I could see he felt the same. Both of us had been without any kind of good companionship our whole lives, and it was just too sweet to waste a minute of it. There were so many options as to where they could have gone to the mainland of the peninsula, or to another island, or back to the outskirts of Seattle, or north to Canada. Whenever we pulled down or burned down one of our houses, Riley was always prepared. He always seemed to know exactly where to go next. He must have planned ahead for that stuff, but he didn't let any of us in on the plan. They could have been anywhere. Ducking in and out of the water to avoid boats and people really slowed us down. We spent all day with no luck, but neither of us minded. We were having the most fun we'd ever had. It was such a strange day. Instead of sitting miserably in the darkness trying to tune out the mayhem and swallow my disgust at my hiding place, I was playing ninja with my new best friend, or maybe something more. Okay, Bree. We laughed a lot while we moved through the patches of shade, throwing rocks at each other like they were Chinese stars. Then the sun set, and suddenly I was stressed. Would Riley look for us? Would he assume we were fried? Did he know better? We started moving faster, a lot faster. We'd already circled all the nearby islands, so now we concentrated on the mainland. About an hour after the sundown, I caught a familiar scent, and within seconds we were on their trail. Once we found the path of smell, it was easy. It was as easy as following a herd of elephants through fresh snow. We talked about what to do, more serious now as we ran. I don't think we should tell Riley, I said. Let's say we spent all day in your cave before we went looking for them. As I spoke, my paranoia started to grow. Better yet, let's tell him your cave was filled with water. We couldn't even talk. You think Riley's a bad dude, don't you? He asked quietly for a minute. As he spoke, he took my hand. I don't know, but I'd rather act like he was, just in case I hesitated, then said, You don't want to think he's bad. No, Diego admitted. He's kind of my friend. I mean, not like you're my friend. He squeezed my fingers. But more than anyone else, I don't want to think. Diego didn't finish his sentence. I squeezed his fingers back. Maybe he's totally decent. Our being careful doesn't change who he is. True. Okay. The underwater cave story it is. At least at first, I could talk to him about the sun later. I'd rather do it during the day anyways when I can prove what I'm claiming right away. And just in case he already knows, but there's some good reason why he told us something else. I should tell him when we're alone. Grab him at dawn when he's coming back from wherever it is he goes. I noticed a ton of I's rather than we's going on in Diego's little speech, and it bothered me. But at the same time, I didn't want much to do with educating Riley. I didn't have the same faith in him Diego did. Ninja attack at dawn, I said to make him laugh. It worked. We started joking again as we tracked a herd of vampires, but I could tell he was thinking serious stuff under the teasing, just like I was. And I only got more anxious as we ran because we were running fast and there was no way we had the wrong trail, but it was taking too long. We were really getting away from the coast, up and over the closest mountains, off into new territory. This wasn't the normal pattern. Every house we'd borrow, whether it was up a mountain or an island or hidden on a big farm, had a few things in common: the dead owners, the remote locale, and one other thing. They were all sort of focused on Seattle, oriented around the big city like orbiting moons. Seattle was the hub, always the target. We were out of orbit now, and it felt wrong. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe it was just that so many things were changing today. All the truth I'd accepted had turned upside down, and I wasn't in the mood for any other upheavals. Why couldn't Riley have just picked someplace normal? Funny, they're this far out, Diego murmured, and I could hear the edge in his voice. Or scary, I muttered. He squeezed my hand. It's cool. The Ninja Club can handle anything. You got a secret handshake yet? So they're running this whole time, just like running and casually talking, I think.
Yeah,
I love that.
because it's
That's,
all so it's like everything's speeding past them, but they feel like they're going at like a normal pace, even though they're
yeah,
running faster.
I like that. That's funny. You got a secret handshake yet? Working on it, he promised. Something started to bug me. It was like I could feel this strange blind spot. I knew there was something I wasn't seeing, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Something obvious. And then, about 60 miles farther west than our usual perimeter, we found the house. It was impossible to mistake the noise, the boom, boom, boom of the bass, the video game soundtrack, the snarling, totally our crowd. I pulled my hand free and Diego looked at me. Hey, I don't even know you, I said in a joking tone. I haven't had one conversation with you. What, with all that water we sat in all day? You could be a ninja or a vampire for all I know. He grinned. Same goes for you, stranger. Then low and fast, just do the same things you did yesterday. Tomorrow night we'll get out together. Maybe do some, oh my god, why is like my brain is, I'm having a brain fart. Reconnaissance to figure out more of what's going on. Sounds like a plan. Mum's the word. He does. Stop it. That's so soon. Oh
Remember, it's Twilight, insta love.
my God, Stephanie. No slow burn at all. They spend one day together and they're hooked. Okay,
Wait,
that's cute though.
maybe.
He dug close and kissed me, just a peck. But right now it makes me so sad because she's gonna die. Spoiler
Yeah.
alert, in case you haven't.
If you
She's
haven't read Bree or watched Eclipse, she dies.
sorry. Yeah. Just a peck, but right on the lips. The shock of it zinged through my whole body. Then he said, Let's do this, and headed down the side of the mountain toward the source of the ratchet noise without looking back, already playing the part. A
But
little
you know
stunned.
something. What if he had always admired her from afar? You don't
That's
know. Maybe
true.
that was the first time they had actually interacted. You don't know if he admired
Well,
her from
see, and
afar.
she did say in that first part where they were like hunting that like he was always like the cool one of the group because he was just kind of like didn't act like the other ones. But I also thinking, imagine if a vampire came along, like they turned someone and one of those vampires had the same power as Edward or something similar, they'd be screwed
Yeah.
because he could hear everything. That's wild.
Hmm.
So they're lucky that that didn't happen.
Yeah.
A little stunned, I followed from a few yards behind, remembering to put the distance between us that I would put between myself and anyone else. The house was a big log cabin style affair, tucked into a hollow in of the pines with no sign of any neighbors for miles around. All the windows were black, as if the place were empty, but the whole frame was trembling from the heavy bass in the basement. Diego went in first, and I tried to move behind him like he was Kevin or Raul, hesitant, protecting my space. He found the stairs and charged down with a confident tread. Trying to lose me, losers? He asked. Oh, hey, Diego's alive, I heard Kevin answer with a distinct lack of enthusiasm. No thanks to you, Diego said as I slipped into the dark basement. The only light came from various TV screens, but it was way more than any of the us needed. I hurried back to where Fred had a whole couch to himself, glad that it was right for me to look anxious because there was no way to hide it. I swallowed hard as the revulsion hit and curled up in my usual spot on the floor behind the couch. Once I was down, Fred's repellent power and seemed to ease up, or maybe I was just getting used to it. Oh, so that's interesting. So she feels like the repulsiveness of his power, like
Yeah,
working.
yeah, all of them do too. Like, so I guess he likes her, like he doesn't mind her, so he doesn't have it as strong around her, and that's why she hides behind him because then the other
Hmm.
vampires won't mess with her. But usually, whenever they're around him or they see him, it's like they mentally feel the repulsion,
Yeah,
and
I think
it's
it's
like, oh
cool. It's cool that she can kind of feel it. It kind
yeah,
his power is reminds me similar of Bella's power, but just like in an
a shield.
opposite. Yeah, like well, it's
Yeah,
a shield, right? Like a kind of like a shield for
yeah,
himself, but
it's a defensive, kind of like
yeah,
how, yeah. So because I remember Eliezer said that Bella's shield is defensive, so his would be defensive, unlike Jane, who is offensive because it attacks
yeah.
people.
Um, the basement was more than half empty since it was the middle of the night. All the kids in here had all the same had eyes the same as mine, bright, recently fed red. Took me a while to clean up your stupid mess, Diego told Kevin. It was almost dawn by the time I got to what was left of the house. I had to sit in a cave filled with water all day. Go tattle to Riley, whatever. I see the little girl made it too, said a new voice, and I shuddered because it was Raul. I felt a little bit of relief that he didn't know my name, but mostly I just felt horrified that he noticed me at all. Yeah, she followed me. I couldn't see Diego, but I knew he was shrugging. Aren't you the savior of the hour? Raul said snidely. We don't get extra points for being morons. I wish Diego wouldn't taunt Raul. I hoped Riley would come back soon. Only Riley could curb Raul even the littlest bit. But Riley was probably out hunting dread kids to bring to her, or doing whatever else he did while he was away. Interesting attitude you got, Diego. Do you think that Riley likes you so much he's gonna care if I kill you? I think you're wrong. But either way, if for tonight he already thinks you're dead. I could hear the others moving, some probably to back Raul up, others just getting out of the way. I hesitated in my hiding spot, knowing I wasn't going to let Diego fight them alone, but worried about blowing our cover if it didn't come to that. I hoped Diego had survived this long because he had some crazy combat skills. I wasn't going to have much to offer in that department. There were three members of Rose gang here and some others that might help out just to get on his good side. Would Riley get home just before they had time to burn us? Diego's voice was calm and he answered, You're really that afraid to take me on alone? Typical. Raul snorted. Does that even work? I mean, besides in movies, why should I take you on alone? I don't care about beating you. I just want to end you. I rolled into a crouch, tense to spring. Raul kept talking. He liked the sound of his own voice a lot. But it's not going to take all of us to deal with you. These two will take care of the other evidence of your unfortunate survival. Little what's her name? My body felt icy, frozen solid. I tried to shake it off so I could fight my best. Not that it would have made a difference. And then I felt something else, something totally unexpected. A wave of revulsion so overpowering that I couldn't hold my crouch. I crumpled to the floor, gasping with horror. It was I was not the only one to react. I heard disgusted snarls and retching sounds from every corner of the basement. A few people retreated to the edges of the room where I could see them. They strained against the wall, stretching their necks away as if they could escape the horrible feeling. At least one of these was a member of Raoul's gang. I heard Raoul's distinctive growl, and then heard it fade as he took off upstairs. He wasn't the only one to make a break for it. About half of the vampires in the basement cleared out. I didn't have that choice. I could barely move. And then I realized this had to be because I was so close to Freaky Fred. He was responsible for what was happening. And as horrible as I felt, I was still able to realize that he'd probably just saved my life. Why? Ooh.
He was all like, "Oh no, you're not gonna hurt my only friend."
Yeah. Why? The sensation of disgust faded slowly. As soon as I could, I crept to the edge of the couch and took in the aftermath. All of Rose's gang was gone, but Diego was still there. On the far end of the big room by the TVs, the vampires who remained were slowly relaxing, though everybody looked a little shaken. Most of them were shooting cautious glances in Fred's direction. I peeked at the back of his head too, though I couldn't see anything. I looked away quickly, looking at Fred brought back some of the nausea. Keep it down. The deep voice came from Fred. I'd never heard him speak before. Everyone stared and then looked away immediately as a revulsion returned. So Fred just wanted his peace and quiet. Well,
Okay.
whatever. I was alive because of it. Most likely, Raul would get distracted by some other irritant before dawn and take out his anger on somebody close by. And Riley always came back at the end of the night. He would hear that Diego had been in his cave rather than outside and destroyed by the sun, and Raul wouldn't have had an excuse to attack him or me. At least that was the best case scenario. In the meantime, maybe Diego and I could come up with some plan to steer clear of Raul. Again, I had a fleeting sense that I was missing an obvious solution. Before I could figure it out, my thoughts were interrupted. Sorry. The deep, almost silent mutter could have only come from Fred. It looked like I was the only one close enough to really hear it. Was he talking to me? I looked at him again and felt nothing. I couldn't see his face. He had his back to me still. He had thick, wavy blonde hair. I'd never noticed that before, not with all the days I'd sat hiding in his shadow. Riley wasn't kidding when he said that Fred was special. Gross, but really special. Did Riley have any idea that Fred was so powerful? He was able to overwhelm a whole room of us in a second. Though I couldn't see his expression, I had the sense that Fred was waiting for an answer. Don't apologize, I breathed almost silently. Thank you, Fred shrugged. And then I found I couldn't look at him anymore. The hours passed slower than usual as I waited for Raul to come back. From time to time, I tried to look at Fred again to see past the protection he'd created for himself, but I always found myself repelled. If I tried too hard, I ended up gagging. That is so funny. All I think is her like literally trying to look at him and then like vomiting. That is hilarious.
Could you imagine having that power and then it's like the immediately as people want to look at you, they just are like, "Ugh."
I know. But then also like I thought it was super interesting because what if Fred is like really pretty,
Yeah,
but they just all think that he's like ugly because of this like repulsion power?
yeah.
Thinking about Fred was a good distraction from thinking about Diego. I tried to pretend I didn't care where he was in the room. I didn't look at him, but focused on the sound of his breathing, his distinct rhythm to keep tabs. He sat on the other side of the room for me, listening to his CDs on a laptop, or maybe pretending to listen, the way I was pretending to read the books from the damp backpack on my shoulders. I flipped pages at my usual rate, but I didn't take anything in. I was waiting for Raul. Luckily, Riley came first. Raul and his cohorts were right behind him, but not as loud and obnoxious as usual. Maybe Fred had taught them a little respect. Probably not, though. More likely, Fred had just angered them. I really hoped Fred never let his guard slip. Riley went to Diego right away. I listened with my back to them, eyes on my book. In my peripheral vision, I saw some of Raul's idiots wandering, looking for their favorite games or whatever they'd been doing before Fred had driven them out. Kevin was one of them, but he seemed to be looking for something more specific than entertainment. Several times his eye tried to focus on where I was sitting, but Fred's aura kept him at bay. He gave up after a few minutes, looking a little sick. I heard you made it back, Riley said, sounding genuinely pleased. I can always count on you, Diego. No problem, Diego said in a relaxed voice, unless you count holding my breath all day as a negative. Riley laughed. Don't cut it so close next time. Set a better example for the babies. Diego just laughed with him. From the corner of my eye, it seemed like Kevin relaxed some. Was he really that worried about Diego getting him in trouble? Maybe Riley listened to Diego more than I realized. I wondered whether that was why Raul had gotten crazy before. Do we ever find out why Riley likes Diego so much?
I think Diego mentioned in the earlier beginning that Diego was one of the first people he turned. Well,
Mm,
that he like took and was like
so
his
maybe he
second in
feels like
command.
this like
Yeah.
companionship, camaraderie.
Yeah. And Diego was, I guess, one of the newborns who kind of had self control in a sense where he didn't want to like fight everyone, where like Raul wants to just be aggressive and like
Yeah.
attack everyone, whereas Diego is more calm, self centered, like not self centered, but he's more like self aware and keeps the
Mhm.
peace. So
Okay. I was like, yeah, did I don't remember. Um, let's see. Diego just laughed with him. From the corner of my eye, it seemed like Kevin relaxed him. Oh, wait. Oh, was it a good thing if Diego was that in with Riley after all? Maybe Riley was okay. That relationship didn't compromise what we had, did it? Time didn't pass any faster after the sun was up. It was crowded and unstable in the basement, like every day. If vampires could get hoarse, Riley would have lost his voice entirely from yelling. A couple of kids temporarily lost limbs, but nobody got torched. The music warred with the game tracks, and I was glad I didn't get headaches. I tried reading my books, but I ended up just flipping through one after another after the other, not caring enough to make my eyes focus on the words. I left them in a neat stack by the end of the couch for Fred. I always left my books for him, though I could never tell whether he read them. Couldn't look at him closely enough to see what exactly he did with his time. At least Raul never looked my way. Neither did Kevin or any of the others. My hiding place was as effective as ever. I couldn't see if Diego was smart enough to ignore me because I was ignoring him so thoroughly. No one could suspect that we were a team, except maybe Fred. Had Fred been paying attention as I prepared to fight alongside Diego? Even if he had, I didn't worry too much about it. If Fred felt any particular ill will toward me, he could have let me die last night. Would have been easy. It got louder as the sun started to go down. We couldn't see the light fading here underground. With all of the windows upstairs covered just in case, but waiting through so many long days gave you a good sense for when one was almost over. Kids started getting antsy, bugging Riley about whether they could go out. Christy, you were out last night, Riley said, and you could hear the patience wearing thin in his voice. Heather, Jim, Logan, go ahead. Warren, your eyes are dark. Go along with them. Hey, Sarah, I'm not blind. Get back here. The kids he shut down sulked in the corners, some of them waiting for Riley to leave so they could sneak out in spite of his rules. Fred, must be about your turn, Riley said. Not looking in our direction, I heard Fred sigh as he got to his feet. Everyone cringed as he moved through the center of the room, even Riley. But unlike the others, Riley smiled a little to himself. He liked his vampire with skills. I felt naked with Fred gone. Anyone could focus on me now. I held perfectly still, head down, doing everything in my power not to call attention to myself. Lucky for me, Riley was in a hurry tonight. He barely paused to glare at the people who were clearly edging for the door, let alone threaten them as he headed out for himself. Normally, he'd give us some variant on the usual speech about keeping a low profile, but not tonight. He seemed preoccupied, anxious. I'd have bet he was going to see her. That made me less excited about catching up with him at dawn. I waited for Christy and three of her usual companions to head out, and I slipped out in their wake, trying to look part of the entourage without irritating them. I didn't look at Raul. I didn't look at Diego. I concentrated on seeming inconsequential. No one to notice. Just some random vampire chick. Once we were out of the house, I split off from Christy immediately and beat it into the woods. I hoped only Diego would care enough to follow my scent. Halfway up the side of the nearest mountain, I made my perch in the top branches of a big spruce that cleared its neighbors by several meters. I had a pretty good view of anyone who might try to track me. Turns out I was being overcautious. Maybe I'd been too cautious all day. Diego was the only one to come looking. I saw him from a distance and backtracked to meet him. Long day, he said, giving me a hug. Your plan is hard. I hugged him back, marveling at how comfortable this was. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. Sorry about Ro, that was close. I nodded. Good thing Fred is so disgusting. I wonder if Riley knows how potent that kid is. Doubt it. I've never seen him do that before, and I spend a lot of time around him. Well, that's Freaky Fred's business. We have our own secret to tell Riley. I shuddered. Still not sure that's a good idea. We won't know until we see how Riley reacts. I didn't really like not knowing as a general rule. Diego's eyes narrowed